Yes. Where is he? Navid, are you here? I put the link in the. Aha, you are here. Yes, are you there,
Yeah,
brother?
brother, can you hear me? I'm here.
Yeah, peace to you. You're welcome.
Peace to you, brother. Great to be here. God bless you.
Yes, thank you, thank you. How may I help you? You were in the comment section. I heard you wanted to make an
Yeah,
input. Yeah.
yeah, brother. I come to you on behalf of the submitter community. We are
Mm-hmm.
people who worship God alone and uphold the Quran alone as the only source of our law. We reject all the hadith. Right?
That's
We
good.
we only worship God.
Yeah.
Okay, got you here. All right.
Yes.
Sorry. All right. So, but the thing is, we want to help with this situation, with this Quran alone conundrum. You see, there's something called the infinite permutations complex. What are your thoughts on this?
In which sense?
So we've departed from the hadith, right? We got out of the hadith. Get rid of Tirmidhi, get rid of Bukhari, get rid of Muslim, all these guys out of the picture. We're done with these guys. They're finished. The Shia scholars, the Sunni scholars, the Imams, the idolization of these guys, we're completely gone from this. We're not going to call on Hussein. I'm not going to beat myself for Hussein or Ali or Imam Reza, call on the Prophet Muhammad, none of this stuff. I'm not going to do any of this stuff, right? So now we're in the realm of Quran alone.
Mm-hmm.
We want to understand the Quran alone. But the problem is we have what's called the infinite permutations complex, meaning that within the context of Quran alone, different people are going to understand the verses and words differently than each other.
Okay.
This creates additional layers of division. So you
Yes.
have heard, I'm from my understanding, you've now debated or discussed with people that are telling you Salah is not a ritual. There is no Salah.
I actually didn't debate with anybody on that.
Okay, okay,
Um,
but this
the
is a
only
big
thing
debate. Yeah,
I never actually even debated anybody on that topic actually, and I'm not looking for a debate on that. I'm looking for a dialogue, not a
sure,
debate.
sure. Dialogue.
Um,
That's what I'm here for. I'm here for
uh-huh.
dialogue with you.
So dialogue is the best way to get clarity. If of course if the person will be respectful and I'll be respectful as well, that so the people will have clarity. Differences will happen regardless. Differences is always bound to happen whether you like it or not. But the point is, the truth matters most. So the truth needs to be established. And truth is something you can say and can be verified. When a person wants truth to be established, they have to say things that can be verified. The moment you're having a discussion with somebody and they are not willing to give you their source of information, it becomes problematic. You see? So, which means the person, whatever the person is saying, cannot be traced. So, that becomes opinionated argument. And an opinionated argument cannot be taken as evidence or proof. You see? So,
I agree with
usually,
you. We're on the same
exactly,
page so far.
exactly. So, the divisions you are seeing in the Quran alone followers forums or groups is about people who just you want to use their whims and desires to state things. When you say you don't agree, they take an offense, right? Then they are like, oh, do you think you always want to be right? It's not about being right. It's about speaking what you can prove. If I can prove what I'm saying, that's it. Just prove me wrong. But they will not prove you wrong. They will use their whims and desires. So that's when people do that, they are not willing to follow the truth. So that is what causes division among the Quran alone followers. However, we have things we can agree on as a common goal. You understand? Things we can agree on, common goal, calling to God, um, deciding on things that will not cause divisions. Uh, I do have brothers that follow my videos, my lectures, even though they will tell me that okay, they believe in Rashad Khalifa in certain aspects or certain things. I don't have a problem with that. Now you are here, of course. You support that same agenda. I know you back. You support the movement Rashad Khalifa actually brought forth, right? You are in line with his message. But sometimes we need clarity on certain things. I remember one time I was on Clubhouse and I asked um, this guy, I forgot his name,
Was it Hassan or Edip
No,
Yüksel? Yeah, sure.
Edip Yüksel, not a dialogue, in a discussion. I asked him a particular question. He took an offense to the question, even though I was not rude, I was not disrespectful. But later on, of course, we settled the differences. The respect came. He even, give me props, sent me a message on Twitter. We even exchanged numbers after that. It's all about understanding. When you are willing to have discussions and willing to answer questions, you understand, and get answers and be answered, that makes, the unifications very easy. But the moment people don't want to be questioned, the way people don't want to answer questions, it becomes problematic. That is a problem.
I agree
So
with you, and I just want to make clear that Edip Yüksel, we have had communications with him. I've met with him. I've talked with him many times, but he's not part of our group. He's not part of our movement. I just want to make that clear.
okay, that's good. So, but I'm just talking about where it emanated from. You
Sure,
understand?
I understand what you're saying.
Because
Yeah, sure.
along the way, you can start a journey with some people, but along the way, the differences can occur. Now, when differences occur, it is the notion between opinion and fact. That is what causes division. It is either this group wants to stick with opinion and
Yeah,
that group wants to stick with facts. That is
I
what causes
understand.
division.
I agree, and I agree with you, and that's why we have to have an objective way to resolve this issue.
Of course, there is always an objective way, but the point is the other party willing to compromise?
Okay, so
That's the only problem.
so can I present my solution to you?
I'm listening.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you for this civil dialogue. You've been very respectful. I've been on multiple lives recently. I don't want to name whose lives I've been on, but they've not been as kind as you are. So God bless you for that. I appreciate this
Thank
civil
you.
discussion.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So um I'm not aware of how much you know about the overall concept that we are promoting, but I can say that it shouldn't be a secret to know that we recognize that God talks about a messenger to come after Prophet Muhammad to fulfill some functions for us. And we do accept and believe Dr. Rashad Khalifa was the messenger of the covenant in 381, and he fulfilled these functions and roles for the betterment and as a mercy from God. Okay, so God says in 381, I will give the prophets the scripture and wisdom. Afterwards, a messenger will come to confirm what they have. So this messenger came, he confirmed the Quran, which confirmed all the previous scripture. Code 19 is the ultimate miracle. It confirmed, verified everything. And on top of that, he took the impure religion of Sunni Islam and purified it to the pure religion of strict monotheism, as established and preached by Abraham, and then later preached by Prophet Muhammad with the Quran. And he presented to us a clear and concise way of upholding the right guidance and the true path of God in the Quran. That's it. This is how we solve the problems. God says when the believers have a dispute, they refer to the messenger. This gives them the best resolution. So now we resolve this. I see a verse one way, you see a verse another way. We refer to the messenger. We have our resolution resolved, finished. This is the blessing and mercy from God. This fixes our issues. The version of the Quran is identified, the clear path of the religion identified, how we practices our religion identified, the correct way to interpret different aspects of the Quran is clarified. So we have resolution. We don't need to go to Hadith. We don't need to go to the Sunni scholars. We don't need to go to Shia scholars. We have a pure way to uphold our religion, uphold the Quran alone, and worship God alone. This is what I'm offering as a proposal here, as a means of resolution for the sake of unity and solving this issue of the infinite permutations complex, where each person has a different comprehensive doctrine in regard to the religion.
Yeah. So you see, when it comes to the notion of coming together, there's always some differences, and so there's something about convincing people in terms of the questions people ask. Some things can be based on belief. Believing is a choice, but when it comes to the truth, it's about conviction. It is what you say to convince people. Then somebody has to disprove you. In a logical argument, in a dialogue, you say things that somebody has to bring up another evidence or truth that can actually prove your claim to be false. Right? Now, I remember one of the things I asked during that time, I think it was about 2, 3 years ago, when I asked Edip Yüksel a question at that time. So concerning where he says overrate is 19. So then I asked him, does that mean based on the 19, two verses in the Quran are false, that they have been taken out? He refused to answer that. And I said, I'm not questioning him based on Rashad Khalifa. I'm questioning him based on what he said in the discussion, because he said that statement. So then he said I should go and read his book. And I said, I've read the book. I just want to be convinced by a particular notion of understanding from him. So then I said, the overeat, alayha, used there, is used in a feminine pronoun, alayha. God never said alayhi. He says alayha this ata ashara. So if in that context we are talking about the Quran, why did God use a feminine pronoun and not a masculine pronoun? Because he normally used masculine pronoun to reference to the Quran. If it's a Quran, he will say alayhi. Or if it is the book, he will say alayhi. But here he says alayha this ata ashara. And on that day, Edip Yüksel was talking and he used that as a reference to say this is where it shows that the 19 miracle existed. When somebody tells me Rashad Khalifa is a messenger, well, that is not a problem for me. It is about belief, because the person would only say, I believe he's a messenger, but the person cannot show me the evidence why he's a messenger, because God never stated that statement, that he's a messenger, right? Directly, explicitly, I'm saying. But then it is based on a claim that has to be substantiated, because if it's a person is a messenger, there are certain things he has to give as evidence to prove the claim, which I know you agree with me on that.
Yeah, can I address some of these points, brother?
Okay.
So, number one, ayat is feminine, and it could be reference to the ayat of the Quran, which is the verses.
Okay.
That's the first thing. And second, God willing, I'm going to do my best to try to address any question or issue you have.
Yeah.
In terms of the religion and belief system, I want to be an open book, transparent, and really try to acknowledge and substantiate everything I'm telling you.
Sure.
What we see in this verse, this is alayha tisatash, over to 19. The following verse says, aidatuhum, their number does multiple things, 5 things. One of the functions is wayazdada alladina amanu imanan. It increases the faith of the faithful. So the question is, how does their number increase the faith of the faithful? We recognize this as increasing our faith because we've witnessed the miracle of the Quran. Now we have 28 versions of the Quran, and with the code 19, we can verify and authenticate the true version of the Quran. What is the Quran the Prophet Muhammad received? Is it the Hafs and Asim? Is it Warsh? Is it Duri? Is it Qalun? How many verses is the Quran? Different versions have different configuration of the verses. Different words are used. 2184 in one version it says maskin, one version it says masakin. This has to do with the different law regarding the missing of the day of fasting during Ramadan. In one instance, you're told to feed one person. In another instance, you have to feed 3 or more people. So now we're solving the issue of the qira'at. We're solving the issue of the discrepancies. And at the beginning of this chapter, verses 1 through 5, it says, I seek what you got for say the rejected. Oh, you hidden secret, come out and warn. Extol your Lord. Purify your garment. Forsake what is wrong. The hidden secret is the miracle. The garment of the secret is the Quran. And the Quran must have needed to be purified. This goes in reference to the false verses that were injected at the end of chapter 9. That God gave us many, many signs. God says he protects the Quran in the Lohul Mahfuz, the master tablet, 85, 21, and 22. Indeed, it is a glorious Quran in a preserved master tablet. So now we access this master tablet with the ultimate miracle, code 19, the preservation system of God. We can identify the Quran the Prophet Muhammad received over 1,400 years ago. And we have that book. And we have the proven word of God. And we have the correct way to access this book from God. And I'm more than happy to be patiently go through the evidence with you, go through the huruf al-maqata'at, go through the Quranic initials, the different compositions of the Quran, and substantiate in detail with you and demonstrate to you the Quran is indeed proven and substantiated and authenticated and verified with the ultimate miracle code 19. It has a precise mathematical system, as an advanced antivirus system. It's ECC, error correction code. It detects viruses, it eliminates them. I'm willing to go through all of it with you, patiently, openly. I'm willing to give access to all the resources that I have and all the resources that my community has, to leave everything at your fingertips, to God willing reach your level of satisfaction, and all the viewers as well. We're open and transparent about this.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. You see, there are perspectives to every issue. Perspective to every issue, meaning there are ways to analyze certain issues when they are presented. For instance, I know you still use the translation from Rashad Khalifa, or do you have a different one now?
That's the translation I use. I use the translation by Rashad Khalifa.
Okay. Now I can just put it on the screen. I have it here, so I'll put it on the screen so people will know what I'm trying to say. I go to the verse you just read, chapter 74, then I start from verse 30, just to show people something. So I share the tab. I don't know if can it be seen? Oh, let me maximize it. I can maximize it so that it can be seen clearly enough. I think it's good now, right?
Yeah, it's good. We can see it.
So 24:30, I'm going to read. It says over 8 is 19, right? He has a footnote. The footnote explains down there. But then it says, we appointed angels to be guardians of hell, and we assigned, then he says, their number, then he put into bracket 19. So he says, their number. In Arabic, it will say, iddatahum. So it says, their number. And the number was the one mentioned above. So Rashad Khalifa himself put asterisk there to highlight that this is the 19. But then he created a footnote to give further explanation on his findings. But then the more important aspect, when we are looking at the text with the context by the text, we see that it says iddatahum, because when you take the word malaika in the plural form, it says malaikatu, malaikata, malaikati. It ends in a plural form in such a way that it sounds feminine. But then it says, we appointed angels to be guardians of hell. Then it says, we assigned, then it says, their number. Their number. If it's talking about the verses, then it says, iddataha. If it's referencing to verses, right? I'm just giving you another perspective from what you just said. So it will say, iddataha. But here it says, iddatahum. Then Rashad Khalifa himself, he put 19. Then number one, the reason is to disturb the disbelievers. So now here we can establish from his own translation that iddatahum representing the angels. I'm not saying it. He did it there. You see?
So let's go through this. So how does that, so if we so there's two issues here. Number one, like we can independently, even without this, we can independently investigate whether there's a structure in the Quran based on number 19 and objectively reach that conclusion. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, we can look at the number 3 here where he has strengthen the faith of the faithful. How does the existence of angels or the number of angels strengthen the faith of the faithful? That's what we can discuss.
So
yeah,
we can discuss that.
We have the Quranic initials. Okay. Why is it that these initials occur in their chapters in multiples of 19? Why does this happen?
Oh, fine. Number one, let's state the facts Rashad Khalifa himself stated concerning the number 19, what it will cause. Number one, he says to disturb the disbelievers, because we know disbelievers are the ones scared of hell. Believers are not scared of hell. A believer who is just like a worker who has done good deeds, who has done his duty as his boss has commanded, will not be scared of getting punished by the boss. So then that number is set for the disbelievers, because they will be thinking, if hell has 7 gates, according to the Quran, chapter 15, verse 44, hell has 7 gates. We have not seen them before, but God is saying about this. Then these 7 gates, he's telling you 19 angels are going to be the custodians or guardians of the hell. Right? So now he says to disturb the disbelievers. Number 2, then Rashad Khalifa put the verse to convince the Christians and the Jews. But when we read the Arabic, we don't see the word Christians or Jews there. Then he says that this is a divine scripture.
It says people of the previous scripture. That automatically
but I understand. But he never said, God never said Christians and Jews. Because
we believe it's synonymous, brother. We believe it's synonymous. It means
I understand your point. I'm just giving a perspective. I'm saying that in Arabic, we don't see it like that. Then it goes, number 3. Then he says to strengthen the faith of the faithful or the believers. Because believers, we believe that whatever God says concerning hell and paradise is true. We don't doubt. So it increases in faith. We know hell has 7 gates, and we know it has 19 angels to guard that gate. We don't doubt that. So now, then he says to remove all traces of doubt from the hearts of Christians, Jews, as well as the believers, which God still didn't mention in Arabic version. Some of the things he added. Then he says, number 5, to expose those who harbor doubt in their hearts. And the disbelievers, they will say, what did God mean by this allegory? Of course, a disbeliever can say, how come hell can have 7 gates? How big is hell? And he can say, how come 19 angels to guard us? He will laugh about it, because he will just like, what does God mean by this? That's a disbeliever's perspective, not a believer's perspective. God never said a believer will have doubt or any issue. He says a disbeliever will say, what does God mean by this allegory? Then he says, God does send astray whomever he wills and guides whomever he wills. None knows the soldiers of your Lord except him, or we can say except he. Then he says, this is a reminder for the people. Okay, so this is based on what Rashad Khalifa himself said, right? Okay. Now, when we take these verses, me reading the verses from a neutral point, I don't see any hint where it says 19 is representing the verses.
But what is the function of 19 for you?
The function has been explained in verse 31.
Yeah, how does it fulfill these functions? How does a Christian get convinced? People of the previous scripture, how are they convinced that the Quran is the word of God?
Good. Now, when we say people of the previous scripture here, Quran chapter 17 verse 2 tells us, God says, وآتينا موسى الكتاب وجعلنا هدى لبني إسرائيل ألا تتخذوا من دوني وكيلا. God revealed the book to Musa to serve as a guidance for the children of Israel, that they should not take any representative. So here, if you are talking to me and you say people of the previous scripture, in my head, I know it is Bani Israel. They are the ones who are the people of the previous scripture. Now, when we bring the notion of Christians and the Jews, these people have formulated their own doctrines, their own books, and so on and so forth. So I don't see them mentioned in this verse in the first place. So I don't need to go to any Christian or Jew for anything. We are talking about, if you ask me the people of the book, I understand it to be the children of Israel. The Christians and the Jews, they are only claiming by their word, by my mouth, that they have the book of God. That's what they are saying. But they are not to be found.
So brother, but okay, so I get it. You're trying to interpret in a way that doesn't give validity to 19, but here's the thing. We already recognize 19 has significance in the Quran. I told you all the Quranic initials, we're finding them occur in multiples of 19. So what are we to make of that?
Okay, so by that, if I may ask, do you stand that Rashad Khalifa took 2 verses out of the Quran? Do you agree with him when he did that?
Absolutely. Those verses were never part of the Quran.
Okay, so that means those verses existed in the Quran for centuries.
In the Mus'hafs, yes.
Okay, it existed in centuries till Rashad Khalifa came and then discovered that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. So how will you explain this verse? Chapter 41, verse 42. This is what God says. Let's start from 41. It's on the screen. God says, indeed, there are those who disbelieve in the remembrance after it has come to them, but indeed, it is a precious book. What is the precious book? Then he says, no falsehood can approach from its front or from its behind. A revelation from the wise and praiseworthy.
Correct. So God says in 85, 21, and 22 that the Quran is a protected book. It's protected in the master tablet, the Lahul Mahfuz. So how do we access the tablet of the Quran from God? So my question for you is, how many verses is the Quran? How many verses do you believe the Quran is?
Before I answer the question, you left my question unanswered.
I think I answered you. I said the Quran is preserved in the master tablet. God preserved the Quran by giving us a way to ascertain the original Quran the Prophet Muhammad received. I believe he received one version of the Quran, not what Hadith says he received the 7 ahruf or the 20 qira'at or any of this stuff.
That I agree.
Prophet Muhammad received one version of the Quran.
I agree.
And I'm saying the only way to ascertain the one version that he received is with the ultimate miracle and preservation system of Code 19. That's it. There's no other way to get to that result.
Okay. So if that is the case, then I ask you a question based on this verse.
Yeah.
When God says no falsehood would be approach it, that is the yatihi, we can see he's talking about the book. Because it says La yatihi al-batil min bayni yadayhi wala min khalfihi. It is using a masculine pronoun to address the book. So now if it is talking about the book, that no falsehood would approach from front and back. Now my point is, for centuries, which means people have been reading false verses in the Quran for centuries up to the time Rashad Khalifa came. So now he came to remove these 2 false verses.
I mean, do we acknowledge that you haven't told me which version of the Quran do you believe in, but let's say you
there's only one. No, there's only one version. There's nothing like one. How many versions? You and I agree there's only one.
No, in truth, there's only one, but in existence, there's many. So how do you differentiate between Hafs and Warsh version of the Quran?
They are just names.
No. They have different meanings, brother.
No, but it's just names they gave to the Quran.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
they gave it. God didn't give it.
Substantive differences.
Okay.
Substantive differences. So chapter 57, verse 24. In this verse, you can bring it. I can wait for you to bring it, actually. Go ahead.
No, make the claim first.
57:24. In Hafs and Asim, you have the word Hawa, third word from the end. Okay. In the Warsh version, there is no Hawa. It's not there.
Uh-huh.
So, did the Prophet Muhammad receive the word Hawa in this verse, or did he not receive the word Hawa in this verse?
Now, in this point, we cannot tell, but the verse, does he have contradiction?
What do you mean we cannot tell? So
Uh,
you don't
no,
know, we don't
the
know
point
what
is, no. You cannot
what
tell
Quran
in
he
this.
received?
No, you are comparing two different books right now. And then you are saying, which one did he receive? You and I were not based at the time of the Prophet. We were not there.
So
But
how do
that,
you know what Prophet Muhammad received?
if the verse doesn't have a contradiction.
Okay, so
That,
let's go to
that
a
you should-
verse with a clear contradiction. No problem.
Okay, let's go. Give me a verse.
184.
I put it on the screen.
Yeah, put it on the screen. 184.
2184. You said it has a clear contradiction.
Yes, based on the version that you take.
Okay. So let's see. This is
Right there.
on the screen. I put it in Arabic. Is
Yeah,
there?
I see it. Yeah, right there. Maskeen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maskeen
Mm-hmm.
means one poor person.
Yes.
Maskeen.
Mm.
There. In the Warsh version, it says Masakin, which means three or more people.
Okay.
So in one version, you have the rule one way.
Mm-hmm.
In another version, you have the law a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So which one is it? Do
Now,
I feed one poor person or do I feed three or more poor people?
no problem. Now you are saying there's contradiction, right?
It's a clear
So,
contradiction in law.
thank you. If you say it's contradiction, that means you agree there are different versions of the Quran. You don't no more agree there's one version of the Quran, right?
No, I believe there's only one true version of the Quran that we have.
Okay.
But I acknowledge the existence of other versions in the world. They exist. Maybe scribal errors, maybe people change, whatever. These exist. But there's only one true version of the Quran that is for us to follow and the Prophet Muhammad received.
Good. I've been able to differentiate between all the versions by using the Hafs version compared to all the versions. But let me tell you the reason why. Now, when you take the verse, it says, Ayyamin ma'adudat. Then it says, Faman kana minkum maridan aw ala safarin. Then it says, Fa'iddatu min ayyamin ukhar. Then it says, Wa ala allazina yutikunahu fidyatu ta'amin miskin. This is the people who give it the name Hafs version. Now, in this verse, according to the question you are asking me, when we go to the Warsh version, we see Masakin. But when we read the context of the verse, this miskin used that when you are struggling to do the fasting, this ransom or this redeem you have to do for yourself, you feed a poor person for 1 day of not being able to do the fasting. The context is still valid. There's no contradiction in that statement. However, if we have to compare it with the Warsh version, some people will say masakin, that you have to feed multiple. In the context, if I have to feed multiple ones, it doesn't befit the context of the verse to say you have to feed multiple people because it is not specific. If you have to feed multiple people, how many? If you have to feed masakin, the question will be how many?
So you're making a linguistic argument?
No, based on what the Quran says.
Yeah, that's a linguistic argument. You're making a linguistic argument to justify one word over the other used in this verse.
First of all, let me clarify the point. God says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Then he says, وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ إِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجِدُوهُ فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. So it is based on the language of the Quran. You have to examine what the Quran says. God didn't say we should check it mathematically. Nowhere did he say you should check the Quran, examine the Quran mathematically to see if it is my word. Linguistically, you check the Quran, miskin makes more sense than masakin. Masakin is not specific because then how many poor people do I have to feed? How many? 10? 100? 200? It is a fallacy.
So you're saying I use a logical deduction and grammatical linguistic analysis to substantiate the correct word used and this discrepancy. That's your.
I've been able to prove that. Put me to the test. That's why I'm using the version people will call Hafs.
Let's keep going.
But still, you haven't answered my question. It's hanging.
What's your question?
My question, I just took you. I said, does that mean Rashad Khalifa discovering in the 20th century that he has seen what we call two verses as false? Does that mean all the centuries before him, falsehood has actually entered into the Quran? You haven't answered that.
Yeah, brother, I explained to you that the Quran is preserved in the master tablet. I said this several times.
No, I asked a question.
You're focused on the ink and paper. And I'm saying the ink and paper that exists in Morocco or Egypt or Pakistan, that's not the Quran that's preserved by God. So you're saying that I'm using a subjective analysis to determine that Hafs and Asim is the correct one. And but the problem is we have inconsistencies even over time within Hafs and Asim. So for example, 769, right? Is it Bastatan with a Sod or Bastatan with a Sin?
Look, if we have to do that kind of discussion, we'll never finish today. We will keep going on and on and on in that type of discussion.
There's a bigger point.
I have already done this analysis by myself, and I've done it with a lot of students who came to me to study this topic. We've done it several times. I even have files written on this.
Okay, so I'm just curious. So are you just outright denying
what?
The existence of the mathematical composition of the Quran?
No, I'm not denying it. I'm asking you the question to convince me. I said, Are you saying falsehood? Because you can never tell me we cannot deal with ink and paper. Then what is the essence of using Quran now?
Yes. We can take Hafs and Asim as a template, but even that needs further purification.
Okay? Yeah, but purification is to examine the statement also.
Well, linguistically. I just give you an example. Chapter 7, verse 69, the word is Bastatan. In the modern transcripts, Hafs and Asim, it's written with a Sod. But if you go far back enough, you see it written with a Sin. This is the Alif Lam Mim Sod chapter. The number of Sod in the Sod chapters needs to be a multiple of 19. That fits with 152. Therefore, this word is shown to be a Sin. It's ECC, Error Correction Code. The Quran is preserving itself.
Right now, I've not been convinced with the even number 19 where it is correlated.
Let's do that. Then let's do it.
Wait.
Let's go to that.
I said, I've not been convinced with the number 19 where it is correlating with the things you are claiming that it is used to protect the Quran. Number one.
No problem.
Now, number two. When I ask a simple question, because the Rashad Khalifa followers, no matter what, you are following an ink and paper book, whether you like it or not. Because if you don't follow it, where did you get the copy you have? You have it. So the copy you have, I'm saying, does that mean the two verses Rashad Khalifa used the evidences from the Hadith, Makkah and Medina verses and saying whatever, to now remove those two verses from Surah At-Tawbah? Chapter 9.
Yeah, those verses already had a huge paper trail. They were already refuted by their own history. Either we accept the hadith is false, and they tried to make these hadith to substantiate the existence of these two verses, which is wrong anyway. It proves they're false. Or we assume the hadith is true, which also proves that these verses are fake. Nobody heard of them. Nobody knew what to do with them, and they slapped them on at the end of chapter 9. So whether the hadiths about these verses are true or false, both directions prove these verses are fake. But we don't even need to rely on any hadith.
No, I can put you to the test now to prove to me how the verses are fake. Can we go that right now? Then you prove to me how.
Sure.
Let me put it on the screen. Chapter 9, verse 128. Yeah. So I want you to prove to me how these verses are fake. This is the verse.
Yeah.
Okay, prove to me.
Yeah, so they have approximately 26 words across these two verses. Okay.
Now, linguistically, I'm not talking about numbers or anything. Just linguistically assess the verse and tell me how it is a contradiction.
Yeah, so the last two words here, they have the expression Raufun Rahim.
Does it have a definite article on it?
No.
Okay. So does that mean when it's mentioned Rauf Rahim, that means it is a contradiction?
Well, let me explain.
Okay, thank you. Explain.
So 8 times in the Quran, including 10 verses before this. So if you go to 9:117, you see Rauf Rahim written the same way for God. 8 times in the Quran, you see this double adjective attribute name used for God only. And it does not have the definite article on any of them. You can look at 9:117, 2:143. I have the whole list here.
So you said those attributes are used for God only, right?
Only in the whole Quran.
Okay.
And this would be considered the only exception. This is just a red flag at this point.
Okay, no problem. That's number one. So let's assess the number one. Because of the Rahuf Rahim, you said it's for God only, right?
And I have the verses ready for you. I can recite
Okay, so let's use this example. If that is for God only, let's examine this word. Chapter 11, verse 87. Now, look how the people of Shuaib describe him to be. They said, indeed, innaka la antal halimur rashid. And they have a definite article. So, Brother Navid, please tell everybody to hear right now. Then the name Al-Halim, is it for God or not?
1187. So they're talking to Shuaib, and they tell Shuaib at the end of this verse here, surely you are known for being clement, wise.
Yes. So I just want you to tell me if that Halim is not used for God also.
Maybe. I mean, you can show me if it is. Go ahead.
I can show you, yes. But I just want you to first confirm the statement. That does that mean because of that statement used for Prophet Muhammad or the messenger Raufu Rahim, that is the only reason linguistical, that is number one. In terms of linguistical aspect, that is the reason you think that verse is a contradiction?
No, brother. I said these are only signs.
Okay, so let's check.
I would never reject the verses on these bases alone.
Okay, so let's check chapter 35, verse 41. Chapter 35, verse 41. We can see Halim was used for God. Do you see it?
Yeah, Rashid is not used for God. Halim is.
No problem. Let's check the Halim first, the attribute first. So Halim has been used for God.
Right, but you agreed Rashid is not.
You wait. Let's finish the first before we go to the next. I'm just talking about attributes.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but wait. But we're talking about a specific combination as a specific name.
So now it's
Rahim,
no.
Yes, from the beginning I made clear. I said Rauf Rahim. This name of God is used 8 times in the Quran only for God. It's a double attribute adjective.
Okay, no problem. I understand you. If that is your case, then let's go to 44 and 49. Because you are going to put yourself in a shackle if that is the argument. Let's go. 44, 49. Check it for yourself and tell me.
Yeah, Azizun Karim.
Okay, now disprove this claim now.
Okay. What's the comparison here?
Okay, your claim is because both attributes are being used for an entity other than God. So here, both attributes has been used for someone other than God. So I want you to now tell me, since it has been used for Pharaoh, does that make him God? So does that mean this verse should be cancelled from the Quran?
Hold on a second. Let me load it. 44, 49, right?
Yes.
Pharaoh is told, or he's mocked, right? Pharaoh is mocked as Azizul Karim.
And it has definite article.
Correct, but he's mocking. He's being mocked, right? So he's not actually these things.
The word there's no mock mention in that Arabic
word. There is
word.
mock. Yeah, he's telling them, he's saying, then pour upon his head the retribution of the inferno. taste this. You were so powerful, so honorable. Do we believe that Pharaoh had any honor? No. Do we believe that Pharaoh had any power? No. So this is just mocking him. This is not used as an accurate description of him. And where is this used?
Did you hear the claim you made before? It is not about mocking. Whether it's comedy, I don't care. Your statement
You should
was
care. No, it
no,
changes
no.
things,
But wait,
actually.
let me make my
It
claim.
changes things.
Let me make my claim.
Go
Because
ahead.
when you made your claim, you didn't say exception. You didn't bring an exception. You said before, I thought even one when we use one attribute is enough. But then you brought the claim that when both are used in the same verse. So now I brought both
Yeah,
for
but this
you.
is not. Yeah, but this is not a valid example because this is not serious. This is a mocking of Pharaoh, right? It's not serious. You think God believes? You think God believes that Pharaoh is this title?
We are not talking about what God believes. We are saying the verse. It
Yeah.
has
So
given an
so
attribute. Listen
where
to
is
my
God?
statement.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me to my statement. My statement is it has used an attribute or two attributes which we know is specially for God. Now it has been used for Pharaoh. Does that mean because it has been used for Pharaoh, should we take that verse also out of the Quran because it has been used for Pharaoh? That's all I'm saying. Should
Okay. So
we
where was this attribute used for God? Show me.
that what has been used
This
attribute? So
name.
you don't know
First
Al
of all, this is
Aziz?
a this is, no,
Wait,
no, hold
wait.
on, hold on.
First of all, you don't know Al Aziz has been used for God?
Yeah. First of all, this is not really used for Pharaoh. This is a mock. He's not these things, right? That's number one. Number two, we're saying it's a dual attribute adjective name, right? And I'm not sure if you even showed where God is called this in this way. But even if it is, it doesn't matter. This is fake. It's not. He's mocking Pharaoh. We already know Pharaoh is not Aziz. We already know Pharaoh is not Karim Al Aziz. He's not these things. He's being thrown in hell. He says, "You are so powerful, now burn." Right?
Okay, so if Pharaoh was so down, why is it that since Prophet Muhammad is so up and attributes has been used for him, and but it's a problem for you?
Because you're claiming that the identical dual adjective attribute for God is used on the Prophet 10 verses after it was just used for God. Look at 9117. This is the claim.
Thank you. So let's go and compare the attributes. Can
Look at
somebody
9117.
no, but let's go and compare the attributes. Can somebody else also be Rahim apart from God?
Sure.
Huh?
Sure, but that's not what the discussion is right now. We're talking about the name Rauf and Rahim in the Quran is
It's an
exclusively
attribute.
used for God.
It's not a
Right?
name, it's a
It
title
is. Look at,
describing.
yeah, this title is only for God. Look at 9117. Can we load this verse?
9117.
The last two words. Yeah.
Exactly. And then
Okay. So
yeah.
they want us to believe, the falsifiers, the
Uh-huh.
fabricators, the innovators. They
Mm-hmm.
want us to believe that in 9117, this
Mm-hmm.
name is used for God, and then 11 verses later, it's used for the prophet. That's what they want us to believe. Right?
So are you saying, can you give me a verse where God says these attributes are only exclusive to him? Help me
We
out.
don't have any example of the violation of this rule, where a
No, but
double
I said,
attribute adjective for God is used for other than God.
but I just asked you a simple question. I said, can you give me any verse where God says these attributes are exclusively for him alone?
Yeah, the fact that all the double adjective attributes are used for God alone, all of them are for God alone, except this one in a verse 11 verses later, in a verse that's already suspect. It's rejected by the hadith, it's rejected by history, it has linguistic problems, and the final nail in the coffin is the ultimate preservation system of the Quran. Code 19 rejects it through and through, then it's over. It's
So
finished.
the point I'm getting here is submitters 19 group. Your point is to propagate the 19 agenda and not the evidence you find in the Quran agenda.
The 19 is in the Quran, and that's why I told you I want to patiently go through everything for you. That's why I said let's start at the Huruf al-Muqattat. If
No,
I show you the chapters of the Quran, the Quranic initials have consistent methodology with the occurrence of the Huruf al-Muqattat, is that sufficient for you to substantiate the existence of a mathematical structure based on number 19? Because we can establish using the laws of probability the likelihood of these being multiples of 19 repeatedly. We can establish it.
it's not
A
about
mathematician
multiples. We
would
are
be
not going to mathematics. God never mentioned the word mathematics in the
he
Quran. I
did.
don't need to
Actually, he
waste my
referenced
time.
it in the Quran. He referenced the expression Kitaban Marqum. Kitaban
What?
Marqum means a numerically structured book.
Kitab Markum, which has been used to attribute to the Quran.
It doesn't even need to be referenced to the
Okay,
Quran.
let's go and see where it is used to reference to the Quran. Can you show me that?
Doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be. I believe it's in
So it's not
reference. I
reference to the
believe.
Quran.
Hold on. I believe it is in reference to the Quran. But the fact that God is acknowledging the existence of numerically structured books, it's sufficient. Let's go to 72:28. God says He counted the numbers of all things. Is it a coincidence? The same verse that says He's counted the numbers of all things, 7228, also the digits add up to 19.
But did he say he counted the number of all things and mentioned it in the Quran and tell you this Quran has
Yes.
mentioned all the number of all things, like meaning the Quran?
So, brother, you're taking the position that you're saying it's not possible for us to ascertain mathematically that the Quran has a comprehensive system based on the number 19. This is
I'm
your claim?
questioning. That's not my claim. Is proof to me why the two verses were taken. That's all I
Yeah,
said.
and yeah, in order to get
Linguistically,
there, in order to
linguist.
get there,
Uh-huh.
yeah, in order to get there, we have to first establish the antivirus system.
Which one is that?
That's code 19.
Can you prove to me from the verses where it says the 19 is attributed to the Quran?
I don't even need a verse to say that.
Then it cannot. I
I don't
cannot
even
be
need it.
convinced of that.
No. I don't even need a verse to say that. Is it impossible to substantiate a
Uh-huh.
mathematical system of the Quran without any reference to it? I'm claiming it is referenced in the Quran. But even if it wasn't referenced, would it be possible for a book to be mathematically composed without any reference in the book itself?
A book can be mathematical. I'm not
Okay.
divining the
And, I,
fact.
and,
I
I'm,
said,
and I'm
listen,
telling you the
listen.
Quran is, and I can
God
show you
says,
evidence.
God says in Quran chapter 6, verse 38, He says, "Ma faratna fil kitab min shay." Right?
Yes. And
He
how
did
many
not leave
letters is
anything.
that? How many letters is that? 19 letters.
I'm not interested in the letters.
No, you should be. This is
No,
part of the
I'm not.
mathematical
No,
design.
no, no. I'm
It's
not. Let
verse
me make my
38.
statement. Let me
Go ahead.
finish my statement. Now, Prophet Muhammad needs to be told all this, right? We don't have any evidence of the Prophet reinstating this kind of statement to the people concerning any mathematics, because if there's mathematics, Prophet Muhammad will have known it before your Rashad Khalifa.
That's not true. No.
What?
That's not true. That's a false assumption. As a baseless assumption.
But you said Kitab Markum, and I asked you to prove that. You
Doesn't
said
matter.
it doesn't
Doesn't
have to be.
matter. Doesn't
So,
matter.
so
Doesn't
according to
matter.
you, the Prophet Muhammad doesn't know mathematics.
Does it? He knew mathematics, but he had no clue about the ultimate miracle of the Quran. This was preserved to be released at a future date, exactly 1,406 years after the Quran is revealed, which is 19 times 74, about the number 19 in chapter 74, in the solar year 1974. If that doesn't give you goosebumps, I don't know what to tell you.
What goosebumps? To take two verses away from the Quran should give me goosebumps.
They were you answer me. How many verses in the Quran? You don't even know.
No, the point is, let me tell you. The Quran I have has 6,236 verses. The statement of God has been memorized by people. Has been memorized. Right now, if you are reading the Quran, you add one verse which is not in the Quran, it can be fished out. When you add one verse, which doesn't belong.
What do you believe? What do you believe the preservation mechanism of the Quran is, brother?
No, where did God say people should preserve the Quran? God never said people should preserve the Quran. There's no verse.
The Quran? Where is the Quran? Where is the Lawh al-Mahfuz?
No, are you asking me where is Lawh al-Mahfuz?
Yeah, where is that?
Where is in the Quran?
How do you access that? What Quran? So if I'm in Morocco, do I have the Lawh al-Mahfuz?
That's why we have the Mus'haf. We have the copies with us.
Brother, if I live in Morocco, do I have the correct Mus'haf?
If you live in Morocco, you have to investigate the book? That
What do you mean? What do you mean?
now, why do we contemplate the Quran? What do you mean by what? Why do we contemplate the Quran? Why did God say contemplate the Quran?
I gave you multiple examples. Even
Giving me
within Hafs and
examples.
Awesome, even within Hafs and Awesome, you have inconsistency. Even within the same chain of transmission, you have inconsistency. I feel like
You are saying
God bless you.
inconsistencies.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
just differentiate. I told you
Pull
if we go over, I can show
pull
you
up,
the difference. Yes.
pull up 769. Pull up 769 right now.
769.
Yes.
You are still going into circles with me. You
I'm
haven't
not going
proven
into
any.
circles. I'm showing you that you lack certainty in your version of the Quran, and
Give
you're
me.
not willing to acknowledge it.
This is
Show
the
the
version
Arabic.
I have. The
Show the
Quran I
Arabic.
have. The Quran I have on the page. If I don't have certainty, will I have the Quran on the page for you?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Show the Arabic of this. Go to the word bastatan in 769. Yeah, let's see
Yes.
it.
Okay.
So do you see how it has a little scene above the word?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. So if you look at the old manuscripts of the Quran, it's written with a scene,
yes,
not a
and
sad. So did the Prophet Muhammad receive this word with a scene or sad?
I'm not there to actually see the this thing he has, the manuscript he has. But God
So you
made.
don't. So then.
But
So
God,
then you.
listen.
Then you. Brother, then you are in conjecture. This
Let me
is
finish
nothing
my
that's
statement.
condemned in the Quran.
Let me finish my statement. But then God says He will cause His servant to inherit the book. But He never said people should preserve the book till this date.
So you don't believe the Quran is preserved?
Listen, Quran chapter 35, verse 31 to 32. God will cause His servants to inherit the Al-Kitab. He never said anybody to preserve the book in the history of mankind.
So you don't believe the Quran is preserved?
By who?
By anyone.
No, where? Then show me evidence where God says people should preserve them.
I believe the Quran is preserved.
No, I said show me an evidence where God says people should preserve the book. Can you show me an evidence where God says? I
showed you that the Quran is preserved, chapter 85, 21 and 22. God preserved the Quran in the master tablet. We access the master tablet with code 19. That's it. You don't have any way to access the master tablet. I just showed you. You can't even know which letter is supposed to go in this word here. You don't know. You say, hey, I did an analysis. I narrowed it down to halves. Good job. Even within halves, we can show variation over time. Now, what are you going to do?
So which version are you using?
We have the version that Prophet Muhammad has. Because
give me the name of the version.
There's no name. It's just the Quran. There's no name.
Okay, you have the version. Give me the Arabic statement of this verse I just put, chapter 7, verse 69. Give me how is yours written. Can you put it on the screen?
Mine is written the same, except the word bastatan is written with a scene only. Because this is a scene, this is the Alif Lam Mim Sad initial chapter, and the correct number of Sad needs to be a multiple of 19. That's 152. That corrects this. We confirmed it when we looked at the old Mus'haf, and you see bastatan needs to be written with a scene, not a Sad. Your current version of Hafs has it with a Sad. This is wrong.
This is what is written there. You saw Sad with a scene on top of it. Why are you saying it has Sad?
What do you mean it's written with Sad with a scene? And they didn't even have this at the time of the Prophet.
Were you there at the time of the Prophet? I said, were you there at the time of the Prophet?
I don't need to be, but the oldest Quran has it with a scene, and the math confirms it.
Then your claim is not making sense. You are not there at the time of the Prophet. How did you know the manuscript the Prophet had?
Because first of all, we have the oldest manuscript that corroborates exactly what I'm saying. That's number one. And number two, God gave us a mechanism to preserve the Quran. I believe in the preservation of the Quran. Brother, you just demonstrated you don't. That's the difference here.
I have a Quran which doesn't have a contradiction. The one I have right now on the screen doesn't have a contradiction. And I told you how I access the Quran. According to, let me make a statement. According to you, you said there are two contradictory verses in the Quran. So Rashad Khalifa took it off for you. You said you are still using the translation Rashad Khalifa did for you. I even asked you which Mus'haf you have. You say it doesn't have a name, and you say it's from the Prophet's time. You cannot prove it. You can only say.
I can't prove it. Code 19 is the ultimate miracle. It's the biggest proof.
So how come Prophet Muhammad? But then how come Prophet Muhammad never knew about the Code 19 preservation?
Doesn't need to. God reveals in the future. Doesn't need to.
Oh my God. Then if he doesn't need to,
At the right, the Dabba in 2782 is the computer. At the right time, we will produce for them a creature made of earthly materials, declaring to the people that they are not certain about our revelations.
Okay, no problem. Brother, before you go, let me put this last verse on the screen before you go. Chapter 2, verse 30.
I wasn't planning on leaving, but okay.
Okay, chapter 2, because I have to do, remember, I'm doing a program, so I have to go.
Sure.
You know, this is not a pre-scheduled thing.
Sure.
So,
God bless you.
Quran chapter 2, verse 30. Rashad Khalifa translated this and he put, you know, on top of it, he says temporary
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
So he says, recall that your Lord said to the angels, I'm placing a representative. So the word Khalifa, he reads it as representative, right? Then he says a temporary God. This is not me saying this. Rashad Khalifa put it there. He says a temporary God on earth.
Yeah.
Now, according to Rashad Khalifa, which you guys believe is a messenger of God, he is putting this understanding there that Iblis is a temporary God, even though the verse into context is not talking about Iblis. It is talking about Adam. The
So if
context.
Prophet Muhammad, that's the Sunni understanding, and you're continuing with that. I
No, I
understand. But if
can show you
Prophet
the
Muhammad,
context.
yeah, we can talk about that, but it's debatable at the end of it. If Prophet Muhammad came back right now and told you, hey, the context of this verse is actually about Iblis, would you believe him or not?
The Prophet Muhammad would not do that.
No, I'm giving a hypothetical. I'm saying if he came back
Yes,
today and
that
told you,
hypothetically it cannot happen. It's like
what do you think?
telling me. No, the point is, it's like telling me that even though
So
God
is
says,
it,
wait,
if
wait,
the
wait,
messenger comes back and tells you you're wrong, would you believe it or not? It's a
because
very
the
simple
messenger will
question.
never come back and do that.
Okay. All
So
right.
whether it's
So
hypothetically, it's
you're
just like
so you're
saying,
saying we started this conversation
uh-huh,
on saying the difference between the different Quranists is
uh-huh,
conjecture. And you're saying your conjecture is always going to be better than every other Quranist version of conjecture.
which
And your
which
interpretation of the
which
verses,
other Quranist?
any of them, we can talk about any topic, right? The
Yeah, the topic
non-ritual
we are
prayer
talking
people,
about
the
was the
people that pray to
19th.
Petra, the ones that do Hajj in Petra, the ones that like Eddie Buxel, they believe Hajj is a YouTube debate every Friday,
But that is
right?
about a word. Here we are talking about the 19 code. That's all we are
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about here.
and what's interesting is the entire time I haven't had a chance to actually present the 19 code and give you actual facts and data to substantiate
Oh
it,
no, but
critical
wait,
analysis with probabilistic assessment.
but 19, based on the question I asked, is what you answered. You just keep talking by examples. You didn't even say, I want to present an evidence. You never said that.
I
So now,
said,
look, can we
yeah,
finish this point? This chapter 2, verse 10, can we finish it? I said, Rashad Khalifa, he's attributing this verse to Iblis when it has nothing to do with Iblis in this verse. Then
I
he
believe
said,
it has everything to do with it, please.
no
But that's a
problem.
whole discussion.
But no problem. Let me finish my point. Then he says, a temporary God. So do you believe apart from God himself, there's any God anywhere?
Yeah, Rashad used the word God here in scare quotes, and that means he's a fake God, and he had substantiated this both in the introduction and his appendix 7. He explains that the only one, the only true God is God.
So why
No one else has the
temporary?
capacity. Yeah.
But the moment you say
Yes.
somebody is temporary God, it means
Yeah. Is a fake God.
it's God.
When you use the scare quotes, it indicates a fake God. It
So
means like this.
if I'm a temporary boss, does
Yeah.
am I still not a
If I say you're a temporary boss, that means
uh-huh?
you're not a boss. If I
So
use scare
then
quotes
what
on the
am
word
I
boss,
acting to
that
be?
means you're not a boss.
So at
It
that
means
time, at
you
that
have a chance to try to be a boss, but if I'm putting it in scare quotes, that means you're not a boss. And
okay, so
Rashad says similarly in the introduction, I can cite it for you. He says I'm paraphrasing. He says Satan's gonna learn the hard way that there's only God capable of being God. No one else is capable of being a God. That's it.
so according to Rashad Khalifa, this is how Prophet Muhammad also understood this verse, that it is talking about a temporary God.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Ah, okay, I get it.
Well,
No
I
problem.
mean, I wasn't with the prophet, but I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with assuming that. That doesn't change anything.
Okay, no problem. So I guess my audience have gotten the clear picture of what you guys represent. This is what I want to understand.
I
That's
can
why I'm
tell you what we
asking.
represent.
No,
I
no,
can
but wait.
summarize it.
No, I've read articles on what you represent. I was just asking a follower of that message. That's why I'm asking you questions based on what I want to get the
Yeah.
clarity from
Yes,
you.
we represent a unified path to uphold the Quran alone and worship God alone. That's what
Uh-huh.
we offer.
Uh-huh.
One unified path for the worship of God alone and the upholding of the Quran alone as the only source of law. And Rashad Khalifa did not use any source of law other than the Quran, and we don't believe in any source of law other than the Quran. But we believe it's out of God's immense mercy and kindness that He gives us a way to access this book in a language that's written 1400 years ago, that the best translators can only use conjecture to substantiate their translation for any verse. And any one of your listeners, they can go on QuranTalkBlog.com. We have many articles about many of the topics we talked about today. And everyone's welcome to join us. We can have conversations on Submission Server on Discord. And you can come talk to us. We're open. I'm always willing to talk to you. I'm always willing to engage your followers, have a discussion, have a civil dialogue. You've been very respectful. You didn't call me names. You weren't rude. You didn't shout at me. You're kind and patient. I appreciate that. But I do wish that we have an opportunity to actually go into the meat and potatoes of the ultimate miracle code 19.
Yeah, I understand you, brother. There's a fine line that I need when I'm having discussions. There are things I have doubts that I need answers for. So sometimes
I
if
agree.
this is my line of discussion always. So I don't usually want to go into certain issues if still I have a boundary to what I have to be convinced about. If I'm convinced, then I am curious to go deeper. But the moment I'm not convinced with the line of discussion of what I'm looking for, you understand? So I know how the discussion will go
It's a
forward. So
very
that is why.
basic premise, brother. We witness and verify a miracle. We substantiate and confirm the messenger prophesied in the Quran, and then we hear and obey the teachings that God gave that messenger. That's it. It's a very simple system.
No problem. I know it's based on belief at some extent, but believing is a choice, So this is where we need to understand. But sometimes when we have to establish the truth, it has to be based on evidence. As I said before, it is based on evidence where it has to be established for other party to be convinced. Maybe the person will not be convinced now, but later on, let's give it a time and see what God has in room for all of us. So thank you very much, Brother Navid. If you have any last message to say before you go, you can just
I
say
just
it.
wanted to point out, I just want to point out the verse. Thank you so much. I just want to point out the verse 2097, where Moses speaks about the calf they made.
Yes.
And he says that he says in here, then he's debating them after they made the golden calf. He said, then go and throughout your life, do not even come close. You have an appointed time for your final judgment that you can never evade. Look at your God that you used to worship. We will burn it and throw it into the sea to stay down there forever. So here's Moses referring to what they made as their God. And of course, the next verse says, your only God is God. There's only one true God. And we say this, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ta'ala la sharika lah. I bear witness no God except God. He has no partners. I just wanted to point that out. I do want to invite you and all your followers to watch our documentary on YouTube, the Code 19 documentary. If you go on YouTube and just type Code 19, a first look documentary, I think it has 17,000 views. It's a nice production. It'll break down everything in the Code 19 documentary.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you. I appreciate your presence, and we meet again, inshallah.
I would like to make a communication with you. We can coordinate a dedicated show or episode or whatever you want to go deeper into the topics that we discussed tonight.
Sure. We can set up on that, inshallah, in the near future. So thank you for your time, Brother Navid. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Navid from Submitters. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Peace.